The book which I am going to recommend today is not really for traders, but more for investors or those who are deep thinkers in investment and want to get a framework for looking at the market. So, this is a book called Stock Market Blueprints by Edward Jensen. In this book, there is a very good approach, and the concept is what I like. Means even in this book, if you look at it, the real meat of this book is really around 40 pages of this book. 40 or 50, half of the book is talking about technical indicators and things like that. But the latter half of the book, where the author offers a framework, or he calls it a blueprint for finding stocks with different profit potential. And this is a very good framework for like looking at the market and looking at the opportunities in the market. And that is why I like this book, because the if you see closely, it has these four things, which is like four kinds of blueprints which you can use in the market. So in order to look at those four type of blueprints, and if you don't want to buy that book, because the book is not really available and it is out of print, but like uh, here is the blueprint what he talks about, and I'll show you it on my computer. So if you see this particular blueprint, he talks about that there are four types of stocks in the market. One of them is called dynamic growth stocks. These are stocks which are growing very rapidly. These are typically new stocks, or these are stocks which are establishing a new industry. Those kind of stocks can have a potential of making 500% move in 2 years. So these are really high growth kind of stocks. Either they are growing revenue at a very high rapid rate, or they have a product which is unique product. And these are the kind of stocks which, if you want to specialize, then he offers a blueprint. Look for like stocks which are growing at 100% plus growth rate and things like that. The second kind of stocks which are there in the market are cyclical growth. Cyclical growth is basically industries which have deep cycles. There are certain industries which go through boom and bust cycles. And if you can capture them right at the beginning of a turnaround or a cyclical turn, then those stocks can make 100% move in 2 years. So again, he offers a blueprint for looking at those kind of stocks, or trying to find those kind of stocks. The key again is, in order to be a good investor in a cyclical growth stocks, you need to find these stocks early in their turn. If you find them like too early, then you'll have to sit through a lot of period where nothing will happen, or the stock will continue to go down. So you have to identify them right at the beginning of their cycle has turned. And cyclical growth is very common in the commodities business. It is common in some of the heavy industries like construction. It is very common in shipping kind of industries. Then the third type of growth, or third kind of blueprint which he offers, is leader growth. These are companies which grow year after year. They are the established companies in their categories. Example of this might be Nike or Costco, or any one of these bigger companies which are very well established in their category, but they are not going to grow 500% in 2 years. They are going to grow 20% a year. So if you buy a stock at the right time of a leader growth kind of company and hold it for 5 years, we expect your money to double. That's the idea behind this book, basically, to find these kind of stocks right at the beginning of their dynamic growth phase, or a cyclical growth or leader growth kind of a thing. So a leader growth kind of a stock, if you are specializing, or if you're one of those person who wants like steady growth, don't want to do trading, or doesn't have time to do trading, then 100% in 5 years is what this kind of a stock will do. And then the fourth category of stock is income stocks. Income stocks are stocks which pay high dividend. So these kind of stocks, they are not going to have a spectacular growth rate, but in 10 years, they are going to double your money. So in 10 years, if your time horizon is 10 years, then you can double your money. And in the book, he talks about how you can allocate part of your portfolio to dynamic growth, and allocate part of it to cyclical growth, or allocate part of it to leader growth or income growth. Now, the blueprint is very useful in terms of thinking and developing actual setups and strategies, because If you are one of those investors who don't have time, then you can go for leaders growth kind of a thing. The other advantage of a book or the concept in this book, if you understand it clearly, is basically cyclical growth stocks are not going to make those spectacular 500, 600, 700% move. Sometimes they will, but most of the time they're going to only double or triple. And what happens is when cyclical growth is at its peak, that's when people get excited about these stocks because those stocks will be making 52-week high or they'll be up a lot. Like recent example of that is the automobile industry. The automobile industry is a cyclical industry, and Ford Motor was one of the stocks which had gone up a lot in last 2 years. And if you go and see Ford Motors, you would see that it had gone up a lot and people were excited about it, but it is a cyclical growth stock, so it was at the peak of the cycle probably. So understanding this blueprint, understanding the concept in this book will help you. But obviously I don't think this book is for a beginner. I think this book is more for like, those who have some experience and those who really want to get into deeper understanding of these kind of setups, and especially for growth investors when you're looking at growth. And the dynamic growth category which he talks about, where in the dynamic growth he talks about stocks which are likely to make 500% move in 2 years or less. There are a lot of opportunities in this, but again, the skill in this is to find the growth early. Many times, like the stocks have already made 800, 1200% move or something 500% move, and then people get excited about those stocks. So, if you want to build an expertise in any one of these categories in terms of developing your investment skills, this is more geared towards investors, not really about traders, then you will have to develop the tools, and you'll have to have the kind of tools which will allow you to find dynamic growth stocks right at the beginning of their growth phase. Similarly, cyclical growth stocks, you'll have to find cyclical growth stocks when they're just about turning around, right? Leaders growth, these are stocks which make 100% in 5 years, so they're going to grow at 20% kind of a rate over 5 years. So you need to identify those kind of stocks. Typically for that, you're looking for stocks which have a higher earning stability. There's a measure called earning stability, which will find these kind of stocks which have consistent earnings. Their earning may not be very big earnings, but they have consistent. Like if you look at Costco, which is a good example, consistently it has been growing. Or if you look at AutoZone, you'll find that AutoZone has been consistently growing. It is that's why that stock keeps on going up every year, kind of a thing. So those are the kind of leader growth stocks which you can build around. And income is obviously the dividend kind of stocks, but they are going to make 100% in 10 years. Now, knowing this framework is good because if you are in a cyclical stocks and it is already up 100% or 200%, and if you are expecting more upside, it is not likely to happen, right? Knowing if you are in a dynamic growth stocks and it has already made 500, 600 or 1000% move, and then you get excited about it also is not a good thing. So that's why I like this book's concept. Obviously, there are a lot of other things in this book which are not necessarily more relevant because it is an old book. It was written many years ago. But if you want really a deeper understanding of how the markets has different segments and which you can profit from, then Stock Market Blueprint, old book, out of date, out of print, so you might have difficulty finding. But essentially, I showed you in the slide the central message of the book, and that is why I like this book.